An excerpt from The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls. An excerpt from The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls. I've been speaking hypothetically about moving to New York a year early. But as I walked, I realized that if I wanted to, I could up and go. I could really do it. Maybe not right now, not this minute. It was the middle of the school year, but I could wait until I finished 11th grade. By then I'd be 17. I had almost $100 saved, enough to get me started in New York. I could leave Welch in under 5 months. I got so excited that I started running. I ran, faster and faster, along the old road overhung with bare branch trees, then on to Grandview and up Little Hobart Street, past the barking yard dogs and the frost-covered coal piles, past the Nose House and the Parrish's house, the Hall's house and the Rincos house until, gasping for air, I came to a stop in front of our house. For the first time in years, I noticed my half-finished yellow paint job. I'd spent so much time in Welch trying to make things a little bit better, but nothing had worked. In fact, the house was getting worse. One of the supporting pillars was starting to buckle. The leak in the roof over Brian's bed had gotten so bad that when it rained, he slept under an inflatable raft Mom had won in a sweepstakes by sending in Benson and Hedges 100S packages we dug out of trash cans. If I left, Brian could have my old bed. My mind was made up. I was going to New York City as soon as the school year was out. I clambered up the mountainside to the rear of the house the stairs had completely rotted through and climbed through the back window we now used as a door. Dad was at the drafting table, working on some calculations, and Mom was going through her stacks of paintings. When I told them about my plan, Dad stepped out a cigarette, stood up, and climbed out the back window without saying a word. Mom nodded and looked down, dusting off one of her paintings, murmuring something to herself. "So, what do you think?" I asked. "Fine. Go. What's wrong?" "Nothing." "You should go. It's a good plan." She seemed on the verge of tears. "Don't be sad, Mom." "All right. I'm not upset because I'll miss you," Mom said. "I'm upset because you get to go to New York and I'm stuck here. It's not fair." Lori, when I called her, approved of my plan. "I could live with her," she said, "if I got a job and chipped in on the rent." Brian liked my idea, too, especially when I pointed out that he could have my bed. He began making wisecracks in a lockjaw accent about how I was going to become one of those fur-wearing, pinky extending, nose-in-the-air New Yorkers. He began counting down the weeks until I left, just as I had counted them down for Lori. "In 16 weeks, you'll be in New York," he'd say. The next week. "In 3 months and 3 weeks, you'll be in New York." Dad had barely spoken to me since I announced my decision. One night that spring, he came into the bedroom where I was up on my bunk studying. He had some papers rolled up under his arm. "Got a minute to look at something?" he asked. "Sure." I followed him into the living room, where he spread the papers on the drafting table. They were his old blueprints for the glass castle, all stained and dog-eared. I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen them. We'd stopped talking about the glass castle once the foundation we dug was filled up with garbage. "I think I finally worked out how to deal with the lack of sunlight on the hillside," Dad said. It involved installing specially curved mirrors in the solar cells. But what he wanted to talk to me about was the plans for my room. "Now that Lori's gone," he said, "I'm reconfiguring the layout, and your room will be a lot bigger." Dad's hands trembled slightly as he unrolled different blueprints. He had drawn frontal views, side views, and aerial views of the glass castle. He had diagrammed the wiring and the plumbing. He had drawn the interiors of rooms and labeled them and specified their dimensions, down to the inches, in his precise, blocky handwriting. I stared at the plans. "Dad," I said, "you'll never build a glass castle. Are you saying you don't have faith in your old man? Even if you do, I'll be gone. In less than 3 months, I'm leaving for New York City." What I was thinking was, "You don't have to go right away," Dad said. I could stay and graduate from Welch High and go to Bluefield State, as Miss Katona had suggested, then get a job at the Welch Daily News. He'd help me with the articles, like he'd helped me with my piece on Chuck Yeager. And I'll build a glass castle, I swear it. We'll all live in it together. It'll be a hell of a lot better than any apartment you'll ever find in New York City, I can guarantee that. Dad, I said, as soon as I've finished classes, I'm getting on the next bus out of here. If the buses stop running, I'll hitchhike. I'll walk if I have to. Go ahead and build a glass castle, but don't do it for me. Dad rolled up the blueprints and walked out of the room. A minute later, I heard him scrambling down the mountainside.